The materials needed for embroidery are thread, perlé, or any type of thread you have. While you are at home, you will need a thread cutter or a pair of scissors, a sponge, or perhaps some folded fabric with a fairly thick dimension so that you can easily pierce it. On top of all that, you will need a punch. However, if you don't happen to have a punch, you can instead use a longer needle with a sharp point, such as an embroidery needle, and a standard sewing needle. The papers I recommend for embroidery are the ones I like the most. They are papers with a weight of 210 grams or more. What does that mean? It means it's a thicker paper with enough flexibility so it doesn't tear and has good resistance. I also recommend, if you have any brochures or packaging at home, those can also be used for embroidery. Ideally, we should give a new use or meaning to materials we can find at home. We will also need, besides a surface, scissors, an eraser, a pencil, and a ruler. Within the format you've chosen for your sampler, we'll start by dividing the space on this sheet to make our 8 stitches. The first stitch we will make is the running stitch, and for that, starting from the edge towards the side of our sheet, we will mark 2 centimeters and then draw a line of 12 centimeters. Using our awl or needle, we will make a hole every single centimeter along the line we have drawn. Once our line is perforated every centimeter, we will thread our needle with the thread. Choosing the thread. Ideally, it should contrast with the background you are using. Tie a knot at one end and pass your needle from the bottom up. Then go down again. Come up through the next hole and go down. In this way, we will make a continuous stitch. This stitch can be used to join 2 pieces of paper to a background, or also to make outlines. And it looks like a line. We can create a variation of the stitch by making holes every 1 centimeter, then half a centimeter, then 1 centimeter again. This would be the Morse stitch because basically what you see is the thread, then a space, and then the thread again. This resembles what is called Morse code, where there's a sound and then a silence. The next stitch we will do is the sand stitch. This stitch is used to fill in a space. For that, we will draw a circle or a square, and we will make holes in a random manner. It can be from the edge toward the center, however you like. Once I have made all the holes in my circle, I will start connecting these holes with the stitch. I go in from the bottom up and start connecting these little dots. The fun part about this is that the stitches end up in different diameters and directions. It's a much more playful stitch, where we can fill in any spaces we want. This is how our sand stitch looks, where none of the stitches touch each other. We can outline the image and then work our way toward the inside. Here's my recommendation. Use double thread so that it has much more thickness. Our next stitch is called the rose cup or rosette. For this, we're going to draw a circle where we'll pierce the center point, and from that center, we'll draw 5 lines out to the edge. We'll pierce at the end of each of the lines that will go around the edge of the circle. We'll take our thread and threaded needle, and from the bottom up, we're going to insert the needle, then go to the end of one of the lines. Then we'll come up from the bottom through the hole at the other end of the line that borders the circumference, and then go back to the center. Simply continue like this until you've successfully marked each of the 5 individual lines of the circumference. After we have successfully finished getting the 5 lines sketched out on the fabric, we'll carefully bring our needle back up from the bottom and start creating a kind of loom. Here, we go over the line, under the line, over the line, under the line. And we're going to keep going around. Over the line, under the line. In this continuous way, we'll start forming our rows. If you run out of thread, I recommend coming out through the line where you left off towards the back and securing everything on the reverse side with masking tape. Since we'll be pulling the thread a bit, it's likely that these will start to come loose. And to make it more secure, we tape all the threads down with masking tape. When you come out at the back, tie a knot and then, through the same space, just a little to the side, insert the new thread to continue stitching. As you can see, our Rosa rosette is now finished, which is one of the stitches that adds more volume. Remember, you can vary the colors to make them much more attractive. Continuing with our volume stitches, now we'll make the French knot. And for that, we'll draw a 12-centimeter line. With the help of the awl, we'll make a hole every centimeter. Once we have our holes made every centimeter along the line, we're going to make our French knot. This stitch also belongs to the raised or relief stitches. Insert the needle from the back side of the paper. Then, with your left hand, take the thread and wrap it around the needle 5 times. Step 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then, we will carefully go back through that very same thread. Be sure to pull gently, since the paper could tear. The fun thing about this stitch is that it adds a lot of volume to whatever you're making, and it's one of the most decorative stitches. Well, as you can see, here we have our sample of the French knot. If you notice, each one turns out differently. Don't worry if it doesn't come out right at first, because that's what the sampler is for, to practice and get comfortable with the technique. The 6th stitch we'll be doing is the Palestrina knot. For this, we're going to draw another 12-centimeter line, and every centimeter we'll mark a line with the pencil. Then punch 2 holes at the ends of the line as follows. We'll start with one, and then at the other end of the line, the second one. Like this. Ideally, you shouldn't make these holes too close to the line because they might merge or the paper could tear. It's best to make them about 3 millimeters away from the edges. We start by inserting our needle from the bottom up with the thread knotted at one end. Then we'll go to the top hole. Next to the bottom one. If you notice, a cross is formed there. We're going to insert our needle through there from one of the sides at the top and we'll twist it. As you can see, this creates a sort of triangle here. So, once more, we take our sewing needle again, carefully pass it through the upper leg section, and make sure the thread goes right under the needle. And then, very slowly and steadily, we pull it all the way through. And there we have our little knot. We do it again from the top. At this stage of the process, we carefully bring the needle back up from the bottom of our established line, effectively forming the shape of a small triangle on the fabric. This specific step is completed by meticulously passing the needle over the existing line of thread to secure the stitch in place. Just like this. First, we create a small little triangle shape. Then we go once again right through the upper leg section. Carefully pass it underneath the loop, and then slowly pull this final stitch tight. This is very useful for attaching a border to the image or also for adding a kind of decoration along the outline. It's also considered a raised stitch, since a little knot forms every so often. The next stitch we'll do is the cross stitch. I imagine many of you already know it, but we're going to start from the basics. Within a shape, we'll draw little squares 1/2 centimeter by 1/2 centimeter, creating a vertical and horizontal grid. This grid will simulate the warp and weft of a fabric. And to create the stitching, what we'll do is pierce the 4 corners of each square. Like this. To start the stitch, we're going to insert the needle from bottom to top as always, and we'll cross our thread. In this case, I cross over here, then go back underneath and cross over the top, and that's how I keep moving vertically. And if you want to do it horizontally, you just move to the side. So we insert the needle from bottom to top, and walk across to the far other end of the wide square. Then we come out through this edge. And we cross over. We now go back directly along this straight line. And we cut. In this way, we'll keep progressing over the surface we want to embroider. Once our cross-stitch sampler is ready, we'll move on to our 8th sample. And just to mention, cross-stitch can be varied in color if you use it as a filling stitch and also for the borders. You can alternate certain colors and give it a much more fun structure, and it ends up looking like a little honeycomb panel. For our last sample, we will also make lines vertically, every half centimeter over the drawing on a surface, and horizontally as well, also every half centimeter. This last stitch is called railetes, or loom stitch. Once we have our grid framed both vertically and horizontally, we are going to make holes at the end of each line where the edge of our figure is. That is where the edge and the end of the line meet. We are going to make holes all along the edge. Once all the holes are successfully made, we will again carefully pass the needle from the bottom to the top. And then we are going to begin making the stitches horizontally across the surface. We will join this line with this one all around the outline. As you can see, it will start to look like this. Horizontal strokes. On the reverse side, it should always look like this. We go through the same side where we came out and carefully cross over to the far side of the room. Like this. Once we have finished our horizontal stitches, we will start with the vertical stitches. From bottom to top, again, we pass the needle upwards. We will do the same as with the horizontal ones, with the difference being here. We will move the thread over the line, then under, over, under, until we reach the other end of the figure. Like this, creating a kind of weave or loom. When making the next row, we will do the opposite. Where we went under the thread, we will now go over. And this is how we create the woven pattern.